Toward the end of 1968, I had really decided that I was committed to being a part of what I thought was going to be a really serious and ongoing rebellion, upheaval that had the potential of not just ending the war, but of really overthrowing the capitalist system and put in its place something much more humane. And so I went first to Detroit and then was involved in several of the summer programs. But yeah, we built collective houses, and it was this kind of intense moment of trying to transform a group of relatively privileged students into fighters and steel ourselves for what we saw was the coming upheaval. At that point, after the Days of Rage, there was a sense that we were pretty isolated and pretty marginal. And what we concluded, I think people drew different conclusions from the event. One set of conclusions was that the rest of the country was hopelessly bought off and horrible, and that we were virtually acting alone in concert with the Third World uprisings. So we felt pretty grim and pretty determined at the same time that we were going to see this thing through. None of us imagined that we were going to live through it. We all felt that we were kind of biting our lip and getting ready for a serious confrontation. We figured out how to use guns and how to use bombs. I mean, we taught ourselves, we trained ourselves how to do it. Some people felt literally that the bigger the mess we could make, the better. That is, that whatever it cost, whatever, destructive kinds of activity we could do against the U.S. government, the best. And that the best that we could do was to bring about a catastrophic series of actions that would get the attention of the world.
I think what has to be stared at is that they brought themselves, they were not brought, they brought themselves to that point. To the point at which they were ready to be mass murderers. This is mass murder we're talking about. They came to this conclusion, which is the conclusion that was come to by all the great killers, whether Hitler or Stalin or Mao, that they have a grand project for the transformation and purification of the world. And in the face of that project, ordinary life is dispensable. They joined that tradition.
The Associated Press in Washington today received a 5-page typewritten letter in which an organization calling itself the Weather Underground said it had bombed the Capitol yesterday. The letter said, among other things, "We have attacked the Capitol because it is a monument to U.S. domination over the planet."
We didn't do it, but we dug it. The people who did the Capitol bombing were the Weather Underground. They bombed the Capitol to bring a smile and a wink to all the kids who hate the American government.
From the underground, that radical left-wing group, the Weathermen, has claimed responsibility for yesterday's dynamiting of a statue of a Chicago policeman. The group promises more attacks on the establishment around the entire country starting next week. The medium for this message was a tape recording, reputedly by the fugitive Weatherman leader Bernadine Dorn. It came by mail this morning to New York.
A dynamite explosion last night heavily damaged one floor of the Gulf Oil Corporation's Pittsburgh headquarters. No one was hurt. A radical group called the Weather Underground said it set the blast in retaliation for Gulf's policies in Portuguese Angola in Africa.
Some people felt literally that the bigger the mess we could make, the better. The war in Vietnam was the most visible and the most palpable and the most dramatic expression of what we were opposed to. And so our unity was based on throwing our bodies into combat against the war in Vietnam. When the war in Vietnam ended, all of that unity began to unravel.
Immersed ourselves in a whole new life with parents and children, and moved to the East Coast and sort of started over. And Zaid was getting old enough so that it was obviously becoming complicated to never have anybody know where we lived and never have anybody come over to our house.
Obama launched his political career in Ayers' living room.